Arc 7 Chapter 33 Now to the journey to the Magic City. I will use what I can to reclaim the throne of Emperor Volika. I will not only use the fortress city of Garel, but also the people of Shadra, General Zyklosman, and of course Natsuki Subaru. Abel had just nodded his head in agreement to Subaru's confirmation. Priscilla, well, it looks like we've reached an agreement, Priscilla muttered after seeing the conclusion of the meeting, and covered her mouth with her open fan. She was right, the meeting had come to a consensus, the victory conditions were shared, the future course of action was decided, and the next destination and goal were set. All that was left was to Subaru. If it's the elite few that are going to the Chaos Frame, what else do we do? Currently, it's just me, Abel, Talitha-san, and Medium-san. A broken bar Al. On that note, can I get one from you, Subaru? Subaru was about to select the final members for the next destination, the magical city of Kazflame, when Al interrupted him from the side. He raised his hand with his ship's arm, scratching the back of his own neck with his raised hand. Al, princess, can I step away from the reins for a moment? I wanted to stay with Bro's group. Subaru. What? Al. Oh, come on. Your voice was backwards, Bro. Is that so surprising? Al's throat quivered as Subaru's voice turned upside down at the unexpected suggestion. But even though it sounded like a no-brainer, Subaru couldn't help but nod his head in agreement. Subaru. What? Why a broken bar? Al, I told you everything, didn't I? I said I would help my bro. Even a doddering old man like me can be useful in some way. Subaru. You were that serious? Subaru thought back to the conversation he had with him before the meeting, and was surprised at his adherence to the content of the conversation. It was true that he had encouraged him, and pushed him. However, he didn't think they were really saying that they would cooperate. Al, hey, what's wrong with you? Did my offer impress you that much? Subaru. A broken bar no. Once I got over the initial surprise, I hadn't heard anything about Al being strong, and with me and Abel, the ratio of male to female forces was just awful. Al, sorry if you were expecting me, but I'm a lot weaker than that Amazonian Nate-chan, pointing at Talitha. Al proudly assures him that he's pathetic. In fact, Talitha was probably one of the best among the Shadraz people, but after witnessing the battle with the 9 divine generals, she was a rather unreliable force multiplier. Anyway, I broken bar Subaru, but I'm glad you said that. I'll take your sentiment. Al, Han, don't worry about it. Brother a broken bar. Huh? Just feelings? I don't know. Maybe this was just a polite refusal. I don't know. Subaru's response left him with a lot of questions, but pretty sure that's the way he took it. Subaru was really happy about the offer, but this was the Volican Empire in the first place, more than Flop and Medium. Al's participation in the war was left to chance. Priscilla, Al, princess. While Subaru was concluding this, a beautiful voice unexpectedly called out Al's name. The owner of the voice was, of course, Priscilla Burial, who sat proudly at the round table. She squinted her red eyes and turned her emotionless gaze to Al, to her own follower Al, who announced his next move. Priscilla, you're the one who offered to accompany me to the Citadel, aren't you? And now you want to leave me and go on an amusement trip with your clown friends? Al, I don't think it's going to be a pleasure trip, but that's the plan. Or do you miss me, princess? If you'd like to hug me and keep me company, please visit a broken bar. Priscilla, nonsense Al. Yeah, interrupted by a light-hearted remark. Al sagged, looking as if he had no great expectations. Priscilla breathed out a small breath as she stared at the top of Al's head through his helmet, and said, Priscilla, a dance well, at best. Al, oh, I know what you mean. The princess is the one who should not be careless just because I and Shilt are not around. The princess's beauty is the beauty of the world. Priscilla, I don't need to be told. Who do you think I am? Al, of course, the center of the world, my princess. Priscilla Burial. Al said the words in a droll, distracted tone and bowed frivolously in front of Priscilla. Then he turned around and raised his hand to Subaru, saying, there we go. Subaru, what? This is the final resolution. What about our opinions? Al, I don't know. Or is it just that I haven't noticed that you smell badly of aging? Is it hard for you to be with me? Subaru, I'm not talking about that. I mean, why do you have the right to decide a broken bar? Al, no, of course you're free to refuse, you know. But how can you refuse? The princess, remember? Al cocks his chin, indicating Priscilla, who was fanning her face. This regal behavior was the overwhelming basis for Al's words. He wondered how terrible it would be to overturn Priscilla's decision. Nevertheless, if it would lead to uncertainty in the future, he couldn't refuse. Subaru, Priscilla, I'm a broken bar. Abel, I don't mind. You can follow me if you need to. Subaru, Abel, dude, you're not treating me like a military strategist. But just as he was about to give his opinion to Priscilla, he was shot in the back again. Subaru glared at Abel, who had interrupted him, and he, too, crossed his arms proudly as he faced Subaru. Like Priscilla, he intended to stubbornly complete his intentions here as well. However, Subaru had no choice but to appeal directly to him, saying that the terms of employment were different. Subaru, what's the point of being a military strategist if your opinions can't be taken into account? Abel, don't be presumptuous. If your opinion is worth listening to, I'll listen to it, but I'm the one who makes the decisions. I will not entrust it to you. Subaru, geez, you're a nasty boss who takes away the fruits of your labor. A broken bar? Al, don't make me repeat it. The results are yours. It has to be. Subaru. The emperor who was ousted from his throne had a wise man to reckon with. What Abel wanted was a Subaru with such a reputation, and he was willing to give up the credit and exaggerate a bit to get it. But that was no different than building up a fiction. Subaru. Fake isn't good enough. It has to be the real thing, or I'll never get back what I lost. Abel. If that's the case, then try to convince me and the people around me with your own hands. If you can't do that, you're just a foolish and delusional person with great ambitions. Subaru. Damn it, I'll do it. I'll put any bad debt to good use. Biting down hard on his back teeth, Subaru replied, looking into Abel's cold black eyes. Even though they were looking in the same direction, they were not at ease with each other. It was not the difference in the soil they stood on, such as kingdom and empire, but something bigger that seemed to be the reason for the gap. As long as that was the case, Abel and Subaru may disagree on a crucial point, and when that happens, Natsuki Subaru a broken bar, perhaps you mean me as a bad debt, Priscilla. Nonsense. Priscilla only briefly responded to Al, who slumped his shoulders and muttered that other members of the expedition to the magical city of Kesflame had been decided, and the situation was set in motion. Abel, get the soldiers of the citadel together by the time I return. I'll send out a touch in the distance. Zykel, I'll do it, even if it costs me my life. Receiving Abel's order, Zykel knelt down on one knee and reverently obeyed it. Zykel, who had unexpectedly found himself in the position of an enemy of the mighty empire, had no hesitation in his stance. But of course not all of the city's generals were like that. In order to unify their intentions and unite them as a single army, the efforts of the general were essential. In that sense, Zykel's presence was a boon. Subaru, Zykel-san, I know this is a lot of work, but a broken bar Zykel, no, this is the role that I, the general, should be playing. It's nothing compared to a bloodless castle. Subaru's eyes fell down at Zykel's words, who smiled powerfully with his chest out. Subaru's track record was that he set up a bloodless castle, claimed he could do it, and failed miserably. As a result, it had failed to meet Rem's expectations and had caused disappointment. However, Zykel narrowed his eyes at Subaru's situation. Zykel, don't be discouraged, he said. Zykel, you proposed the bloodless siege, and His Excellency approved it, and the fact is that I and my chiefs of staff joined your ranks without shedding blood. Subaru, without shedding blood, that's a broken bar. Subaru choked out, looking at the bandage wrapped around Zykel's wound, saying that it was an exaggerated expression. But Zykel's cheeks relaxed, and then he forced himself to peel off his own bandage. The blood-stained bandage was removed, revealing the wound on his arm. Zykel, this is just a scratch for a soldier. More than that, you should be proud, because as a result of your efforts, the number of generals fighting for you has not decreased. Subaru, Zykel, you are to do your duty. Miss Natsumi. Subaru didn't know if he would be able to give the right words back to Zykel when he said that. However, even though he couldn't praise him outright, he felt good about Zykel's character for finding something to praise, and the fact that he didn't let him die was an achievement. And Subaru, are you sure you want to go? Subaru, no, that was a crazy thing to say. Forget it. And with that, he shook his head at Rem, whose eyes could not hide her fatigue. Standing at the entrance to the city hall with her cane, Rem was not dressed in traveling gear, but in the light armor of a healing practitioner scrambling around to help the wounded. Rem would remain in Geralt. It was a temporary separation from Subaru, who was on his way to the Chaos Frame. Before parting, Subaru smiled at Rem's comment about seeing him off. Even though he knew it was out of concern, he couldn't help it. Subaru, that's true, it's not all good, but it's hard for you to tell me to forget something about you. Rem, oh, I didn't mean to a broken bar. Subaru, because everything you've given me, whether it's a strangled neck or a broken finger, is a precious memory that I can't live without. Rem, what? He hadn't meant to make fun of her, but he was shot through with Rem's cold eyes when he thought back to the events that had impacted him since he was sent to Volika. It was just that many of the memories that popped into his mind had a strong impact of pain and suffering. Of course, there were many memories of hope and joy that he had stored deep in his heart, such as the fact that he was able to come to terms with Rem and that she cared for him. But the most painful memories were also stored in the same place. Rem, are you sure you're okay with this nervousness? A broken bar. Subaru, you know, it's exhausting to be tense all the time. If you're asking me if I'm a broken bar, okay. I've got a lot on my mind, and I'd like to be around you all the time if I could. Rem, Subaru, unnerving reply. No, I'm just glad you're not ignoring me. A broken bar. He was hurt by the casualness, but the words he told Rem were his true feelings. Leaving Rem and Geralt had been a big agony until the very last minute. To be honest, even at this moment, he wanted to retract his previous statement, grab her by her slim arms, and take her away. How good it would be to have within Natsuki Subaru's arm's reach, to protect her from the hardships, fires, and every possible bad thing that could befall Rem. Subaru, in fact, I'd even like to tie you and me together with an unbreakable cord forever. Rem, are you serious? A broken bar. Subaru, rather. Rem, finally, he couldn't even get her to say, what? Of course, he knew that if he said it, he would be rejected, so he just said it as a suggestion. It would be best if he could tie himself to Rem all the time, so that he would always know if she was safe, depending on the situation. He may have to use the power he awakened in the Pleiades watchtower. A broken bar. Subaru, I'm not sure how to use Corleones, either. A broken bar. Subaru's new ability, Corleones, manifested in the Pleiades watchtower, was the ability to vaguely grasp the location and situation of his allies, with Subaru at the center. In addition, Corleones allows Subaru to take on the burden of his friends and keep them in check. Or perhaps he could use his power to take the burden of Rem's crippled legs and let her run around the fields and mountains in high spirits. He didn't want Rem to go out of reach by doing that, though. Subaru, Rem, hey, why do you look so depressed all of a sudden? Subaru, no, self-loathing, Rem pointed out, and Subaru sighed, holding his own deflated face in his hands. It occurred to him that Rem's limp had kept her in a place where she couldn't get away from Subaru. The fact that she couldn't escape was one of the things that kept Subaru and Rem from ending their relationship. The fact that Rem wasn't in perfect shape made him think that he was lucky. Subaru, because of this, even Rem can't trust me. Subaru was always thinking only of himself. He wanted to be more gentle. He wanted to be kind, smart, and strong. He has been working hard for the sake of everyone, and now that he has looked at himself in the tower, it was still not enough. He can't get back the Natsuki Subaru that Rem believed in. Rem, a broken bar, Subaru. Sorry, I was getting a little sentimental one. Rem, Senshi a broken bar. What is it, Subaru? Don't worry about it. It's an expression that's only understood in my hometown and a broken bar Al. Rem raises an eyebrow slightly as Subaru shrugs his shoulders and replies. However, she rubbed her eyes and erased the wrinkles, as if to postpone the feelings that were growing inside her. There must be a lot of conflicts in Rem's mind. Even the fact that she came out to see him off like this must have been something she was thinking about. Subaru, I'm not going to be gone long. I won't be able to stand it without you. Rem, a broken bar. You're doing that again. Subaru, ugh, I mean it. A broken bar. If it makes you feel uncomfortable, I'll refrain as much as possible. Rem, you're not going to try to stop, are you? Subaru's shoulders slumped in remorse as he was met with a stare. Of course, he didn't want to offend Rem, and he didn't want to make her uncomfortable, but that didn't stop him from overflowing with strong feelings for Rem. But no matter what, Subaru, who had disappointed Rem, said, Subaru, good luck, and I'll be back soon. I'll bring back a good report. Rem, a broken bar. Yes, I'm expecting Able-san, Medium-san and Talitha-san. Subaru, not for Al, but not for me too. Rem, Subaru asked, just to be sure, but the temperature of Rem's gaze remained the same. However, Subaru must have looked very shameful at that answer, because Rem fell silent for a while, then let out a small breath, as if giving up, and said, Rem, it would have been a lot better if we talked about believing in you and not believing in you. Subaru, you're not talking about believing or not believing. A broken bar. Rem, the evil smell still hasn't faded, but that's not the problem. Subaru, that's not the point. A broken bar. Rem's pale blue eyes continue to do so, a glint of disbelief in them that won't go away. We're going to be separated from each other, even if it's only temporarily. Even though he knew that her distrust was caused by Subaru's blunder in Geralt, he wanted to get rid of it as much as possible. Not so much for Subaru's own sake, but for the sake of Rem's feelings as she waits in the city. Subaru, tell you what, Rem, I'll do the best I can. How can I help you get rid of your anxiety, or whatever it is? Rem, a broken bar. Then why are you still dressed like that? Subaru, Subaru looked down at herself as the Rem in her eyes told her so. A wig with long black hair, white powder to hide her scars, an outfit that was carefully designed not to show the lines of her body, and ornaments that were not overly flamboyant. A broken bar. Subaru, was there something strange about a broken bar? Rem, one of the strange things is that there is nothing strange about it, and one of the strange things is that you are still dressed like that when you leave the Citadel. How are you going to plead out? Subaru, no, that's why I explained to you that this is something that needs to be done. Watching the temperature of Rem's eyes drop, Subaru let out a scream as she continued her Natsumi Schwartz state. It was completely unexpected that this outfit was playing a role in her disbelief, but as he had told Rem, there was a good reason for this. Subaru, Rem, as I told you yesterday, we're from the country next to this one, and if my real name gets out, I'm going to be in trouble across the country. That's why I need it. It's not the real me. It's the Natsumi Schwartz. A broken bar. Rem, I see. Subaru, a reply that doesn't dispel my disbelief at all. The temperature of Rem's eyes did not change, and in fact, it even increased her disbelief. However, this was a countermeasure devised in earnest after weighing up Subaru's situation and the role it had been assigned. The name Natsuki Subaru cannot be sold in this Volocca Empire. Subaru is already a knight of Emilia, an important figure in the kingdom of Lanica. In other words, what we are doing now is a fine interference in the internal affairs of a neighboring country. Subaru, no, there may be nothing admirable about interfering in internal affairs. A broken bar. Whatever the case, the important point is that the consequences of Subaru's actions, and the responsibility for them, do not rest with Subaru alone. In a nutshell, it might cause trouble for Emilia as her knight. Subaru, who had sworn to help her on her way to becoming king, would never allow her to pull such a leg. Subaru, so, it's Natsumi Schwartz. It doesn't matter how well the name Natsumi sells. With Natsumi it's just a beautiful black-haired girl who suddenly appeared in the Volocca Empire. Rem, are you finished? Subaru, not yet, no. Also, as a rough estimate, the name A broken bar Natsumi Schwartz will leave a chance for my people in Lanica to notice me. Rather, that was the main reason for limiting the pseudonym to Natsumi Schwartz. This is not the first time that Subaru has dressed up as a woman and called herself Natsumi Schwartz in the Volocca Empire. There was a time when she dressed up as a woman out of necessity, not as a sideshow at the Russell residence, and her true identity was known to everyone except Emilia. It was not an entertainment at the Russell residence, but she had to dress up as a woman. In other words, in the future, if Subaru's existence becomes known in the Empire as Abel had hoped, and if her name spreads as Natsumi Schwartz, Emilia and the others may have the opportunity to know that Subaru and the others have been sent to the Empire. Hence a broken bar. Subaru, I'm dressed like this out of necessity. Rem, I understand. It took quite a while, but he was relieved that Rem understood. Anyway, that's why Subaru's transvestite status will be maintained for a while now. He doesn't want to undermine Rem's trust by taking too long, but that depends on the situation. Subaru, Rem, if you have a problem, talk to Flop-san or Zyklus-san. If it's too difficult for a man, Zelda-san and the others are there. Don't keep it all to yourself. Rem, it doesn't add up for you to say that, but I'll ask. A broken bar you, too, and try not to bother Able-san or Medium-san, Subaru. I'll just take care of the back end. Aside from Medium and Talitha, Subaru was not going to shy away from the burden on Able. Once in a while, Able should break his cool face and struggle as well, sweating on his forehead. Once we had said our goodbyes and a few words of caution, it was time to leave. Before repressing the difficulty of leaving and departing, Subaru. Rem, where's that guy? Rem, Louis-chan, is it? I think he's with you, Takata, right now. A broken bar, Subaru. Yeah, I see. Rem, you don't want me to go get a broken bar, do you? The tone of her voice drops, and Rem gives me a searching look. The tone of her voice was not pleasant, though she knew Subaru's intentions. Rather, the tone was one of deep irritation and bitterness. Since the attack on the city hall, Subaru's suspicions about Louis have remained unchanged, despite the fact that they have had very little contact in their hectic schedule. In fact, his suspicions would never be confirmed, even though she seems to have a soft spot for Rem and Utakata and is getting along well with Shudra and the others. There is no telling when and where she might reveal her true nature. In that sense, he was worried about leaving Louis behind. It's just feta broken bar Rem. Already, you've been keeping an eye on him for the entire duration of the mission to bring down Geralt, haven't you, Subaru? Rem, it's too late for that. That's what Rem said to him, and he didn't have any words to reply. If Louis was going to take any action, she had already had several chances to do so it was probably useless to keep on being wary of Louis, Subaru. In the meantime, I've already told Kana and the others that they should remain vigilant. Rem, stubbornness. A broken bar, a small whispered word, and hearing it, Subaru thinks for a moment. The reason why he didn't tell Rem about Louis' true nature and dangerous powers in the beginning was because she didn't have the foundation to believe Subaru's story. He didn't want to lose Rem's trust and alienate her by telling her about Louis' situation. But what about now? The relationship has improved and she listens to him, albeit coldly. Maybe now she wouldn't be so dismissive when he talked about Louis' true nature. Subaru, a broken bar, no. Don't do anything stupid. He shook his head and repudiated the idea that has been niggling at him. She might believe him, but there's nothing he can do if she did. So far, Louis hadn't turned tail. It was hard to believe that she would reveal her true nature as soon as he talked to Rem. The situation remains the same. Instead of making Subaru feel better, it would only increase Rem's anxiety. There's no need to do that. Rem, what's with the a broken bar face? Subaru, yeah, I was just hoping that only happy things would rain down on Rem's life. Rem, what? Rem's gaze became stern as Subaru held back a sigh of relief. However, if he tried to say something, the conversation would go on and on. Al, bro, it's about time we left, so said Al, leaning against the carriage. Waving, behind him was a carriage and a single horse-like creature that boasts a body as huge as the carriage, a creature called a gale horse, which was said to pull them along their journey. Rem, I've heard that it's a rare animal in Volca and can only be given to generals. A broken bar, Subaru. Zykel-san lent it to me. I think it's a female, and it's consistent. Rem, consistent. A broken bar. Rem tilted her head, seemingly unconvinced by Subaru's words. This was how Rem reacted to Subaru's words. For better or worse, such a happy environment would have to wait for a while. Al, oi, bro, Rem, Al-san is calling for you, Subaru. Yeah, I know, I'm aware of that. A broken bar, Rem. A question mark, Subaru. The soles of my shoes say it's hard to leave your side and stay off the ground. A broken bar, ouch, ouch. The tip of the cane gouged out his back, and the sole of the shoe that should have been attached to me left the ground. He was forced to take 2 or 3 more steps forward, opening the distance between him and Rem. The distance between us. In earnest, Subaru. Rem, I've told you many times. A broken bar. Rem, I will be careful. I'll also be vigilant. If I'm in trouble, I'll turn to someone else. Goodbye, Subaru. Okay, broken bar. Subaru's shoulders slumped and he wilted as he was roughly told goodbye. Looking at him, Rem sighed deeply and said, Rem, take care, and have a good day. I'll be waiting for your return, Subaru. Oh, a broken bar. Rem, I'm not going to suddenly disappear. I trust people. A broken bar with the exception of you, she said to add, and Subaru chewed on it carefully. Then he shook his head several times, even as Rem frowned in disgust. Subaru, I'm off, and with a big wave of his hand, he was sent off by Rem. As the carriage was moving away, passing through the main gate of the citadel and disappearing into the distance, the carriage was headed southeast from the city to the demon city of Kazflame, where one of the most powerful people in the empire was based, and the focus was on whether or not you could seduce that person. To be honest, if it meant recruiting someone, the choice to take Subaru with us was questionable. I'm sure everyone will agree that you're trying a broken bar hard, though, with her cane. Rem squints at the tracks of the carriage, which are no longer visible. Subaru, who had been in a joking mood up until the moment they parted, was making all sorts of excuses, but all Rem could think of was that he didn't want to stop dressing as a woman. Of course, it didn't mean that she thought that all of the excuses were lies. They're gone. The city will be a little more airy once the boisterous ones are gone. I'm not sure if it's good news or Abel's head they're bringing back. Rem, Priscilla-san. Suddenly, a voice called out from behind Rem as she stood there, without even needing to turn around. A beautiful woman who made a vivid impression in red stepped out next to her. Priscilla, wearing a luxurious dress and sparingly exposing her violent beauty. Rem hadn't had a conversation with her since she saved her and her life from the tyranny of Arikia, which attacked the city hall. So when she suddenly spoke to her, her confusion and bewilderment grew stronger. Rem, thank you for a broken bar. Priscilla, thanks for what? Rem, for what happened yesterday, at the city hall. I was saved from that woman, Arikia. Not only me, but everyone else as well. Thanks to you, Priscilla. Many of us saved lives. You say, if I may say so, the credit for saving their lives goes to you. You used your talent and study to save those who were dying. It was not my intention to show show mercy to them. Do not twist my actions without permission. Rem, I didn't mean to add a broken bar. Rem thinks to herself as she tries to say that she did not. It was a bad habit to prematurely judge the thoughts and actions of others and their intentions and try to fit them into your own mold. She remembered many times, not just with Priscilla, even though I've only been alive for a mere 2 weeks or so, considering my lost memories. Priscilla, so, you're not going to say anything back? That's also an extremely boring decision, isn't it? Rem, a broken bar, I'm sorry, I thought you were right, but I guess you can't twist the fact that I'm grateful to you, either. Priscilla, huh? Priscilla said with interest and pulled out a fan from her cleavage. Then, she opened it noisily as she pulled it out and gently hit her own shapely lips. However, in her unconcealed eyes, there was a light of pleasure and opportunity that could not be hidden. Priscilla, I had heard that you had lost yourself, but a broken bar, how dare you speak back to me? Rem, lost myself is not quite the right word. Just because you can't remember, doesn't mean you disappeared. Placing a hand on her chest, Rem defended herself to Priscilla. If she had disappeared, it would be no different from a dream illusion that no one could reach. But Rem's lost memories were not gone. They were not in Rem, but in Subaru, who was desperately trying to get them back. If what he said was true, she had a twin sister. She wondered if there was any trace of the person she had been before she lost her memory in that sister, or if there was any trace of her in the friends and relatives that Subaru had talked about, in the people she had not yet seen. If she could just accept that everything in Rem is gone, that everything is just building up from nothing, a broken by Rem. If I had been able to do that, my heart wouldn't be hurting so much. Priscilla, a Rem, all the time, every second, I'm reminded of it. Every time I look into his eyes, I know I'm betraying his expectations. Of course, Subaru probably didn't mean to do that. The stench was so thick that it was hard to even see him at one point, and his face was always desperate, and that desperation was directed at herself, who has disappeared, not remaining in Rem. Rem, how selfish of me. I'm disgusted with myself. A broken bar, so I couldn't tell him that I was relieved to be apart, that I found it difficult to tell him who didn't want to separate, and not just relieved, but also this ugly feeling of mine. Priscilla, what's your name? Rem, what? Priscilla, your name. Don't tell me you lost your name as well. But then again, you are not nameless. You are certainly called by your name. I'm pretty sure it's a broken bar. Priscilla raised her gaze lightly, searching the void for an answer to her question. Perhaps she would remember Rem's name. Even in the short time she was here, she could sense that she was a very intelligent person. At the same time, she was also a very mean person. Hence here Priscilla, I'm Rem. Rem said to herself, before being deliberately told the wrong name, even though her memory was lost, and there was no sign of it returning, and even though she was separated from the people who knew her in the past, at least the name she had been called and recognized for the past 2 weeks was real. Priscilla, interesting, Priscilla muttered shortly after hearing that answer. She then closed her fan noisily and gently lifted Rem's chin with the tip of the closed fan. The red eyes shot out from the front, and Rem's throat burned from the heat. But even though she couldn't put it into words, she stared back with intent in her eyes. Priscilla, Rem, I'm going to keep you by my side for a while. Rem, a broken bar beside you. Priscilla, you may have the background and ambition, but not the ability. Your ugly healing magic will be repaired by me in moderation. Then you will be able to see some of it. Rem, what? You're going to teach me how to heal? Priscilla, yes, I have no background in the art of healing. I only have an aesthetic eye. I know what you are lacking when I see it. Rem, the answer that came back was not the one she expected, but in a way it was either more than she expected, or very far from what she expected. However, it was worth relying on Priscilla's words if she could utilize Rem's only current skill, healing magic that could heal others. If only she had more power, she thought, and she had just regretted it. Rem, but, Priscilla-san, aren't you going back to your base? Priscilla, number. I've also attached Owl's guy to Abel. It won't be long before we see if he can meet the conditions I've imposed on him. I will wait here. There will be some inconveniences, but a broken bar, I will call Schultz to resolve them. Rem, a broken bar. I don't know what tugged at my heartstrings, but Priscilla decides to stay in Geralt. Either way, it would be helpful to have her as a mentor. There are still many people in this city who need Rem's poor healing skills. I can't leave the city without them. Priscilla, once that is decided, prepare the room for me. I'll let Schultz take care of the details, but we need a place to spend today and tomorrow. Rem, I understand. I'll have it ready for you right away. She was ordered to do what she wanted, but Rem didn't feel like disobeying, so she obeyed. Priscilla had a way of making others obey her, but Rem herself had no resistance to being ordered to do what needed to be done. With a flurry of steps and a cane, she returned to the city hall and thought that she should consult with Zack about Priscilla's stay and the arrangements for her room. Rem, the Shudra people are not used to working in the city, and I feel bad that I have to rely on Zack for so many things. However, he is a man who will not say no or no if a woman asks him. No. Ouch. Rem, Yutakata-chan. Inside the city hall, on the way to the office where Zykel would be, she ran into a girl who was looking out of the corridor windows. Yutakata. When Yutakata noticed Ram's appearance, she smiled at him with a friendly face. Rem couldn't help but smile back, her cheeks relaxing. Rem, I'm sorry I've been kind of slammed. Yutakata. Wu is fine. She's fine. I'm more worried about her than Wu. She's been wobbling around. Yutakata. Talitha-san is. Yes. A broken bar, newly appointed as chief. Talitha accompanied Subaru and the others on their journey. Even in the eyes of the young Yutakata, Talitha must have looked unreliable, almost crushed by her sudden assignment. Still, it was admirable of her to seek her own way out and take the first step to gain confidence. While she crouched there, whining that she had nothing, the people around her continued to move forward, leaving Rem behind. I definitely didn't want to curse the world with my whining and drag every one of them down with me. Rem, Talitha-san, you will be fine. So, let me, Yutakata-chan, and the others protect the place where Talitha-san will come back. Yutakata, NG, okay, Lee, I can count on you. Rem, yes, I suppose. When you say so, I feel a little more confident. Rem's cheeks relaxed slightly at Yutaka's unpretentious words. Then suddenly, Rem noticed something strange and looked around. Yutaka, who was standing in the aisle, looking out the window, was alone and there was no one else around. It still seemed like an inappropriate environment for a child to be walking around alone, but she wasn't trying to blame her for not being with an adult. It was fundamental. Rem, are you alone? Yutaka-chan? Well, what about Louis-chan? Although he had been left to his own devices for a long time, Louis had grown quite fond of Yutaka. They were friends of the same age and seemed to have a comfortable relationship, which is why the situation of Yutaka being alone was so uncomfortable. Of course, I'm probably overthinking this. Rem, Louis-chan is not with you? Yutaka, yes, Lou already left. Rem, a broken bar what? Rem stiffens when she hears Yutaka's words with her head tilted back, stopping her thoughts from going white for a moment. Rem tried her best to use her brain to ascertain the truth of Yutaka's words. Louis was not with her, and the meaning of Yutaka's words was a Rem. Louis-chan is Yutaka. She left. Wu helped her get into the carriage, and the brave and courageous Shudra girl stuck her chest out and said that to Rem, as proudly as ever, with no ill will at all.